We'll just wait for Jason to get back in his seat and then we'll start. Joking. Okay. Can we get started then, please, colleagues? So if we can finish up our conversations now, please. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2025-2026 Licensing Committee. Firstly, I'd like to welcome our new members. We've got Councillor Wilson, who's back after a year off, and we've also got Councillor Pogson Golden as well. It's lovely to have you on the committee with us. Let's go around and introduce ourselves, please, starting with Councillor Farley.
Councillor Luke Farley, Labour Councillor Bermondsey and Richmond Hill.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Asghar Ali, representing Gibton and Hare Hills.
Good morning, Councillor Sharon Hamilton, Motown Meanwood Ward.
Hello, I'm Councillor Kate Haig, Farnley and Wortley.
Councillor Lisa Martin, Roundhay.
Good morning, Councillor Jordan Bowden, Roundhay.
Morning, Isaac Wilson, Councillor for Wheatwood. Good to be back.
Morning, Councillor Tom Hinchcliffe, Bramley and Stanley Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Pogson Golden, Middleton Ward.
Morning, Councillor Ed Carlisle for Hunslet and Riverside.
Good morning, Councillor Dawn Seary, Pudsey Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Neil Buckley, Old Woodley Ward.
Welcome, colleagues. Nice to have you all back with us. Sorry? Have I not introduced myself? I'm Councillor James Gibson. I'm the chair of the Licensing Committee. Sorry, I just assume that everybody knows who I am, including the public. We'll go through officers, please. Rob, if you don't mind.
Good morning, Robert Brown, Legal Services.
Morning, Valence Jacobs, Licensing and Finance Manager at the Tax and Private Hire Licensing.
Morning, everybody. Richard Perrett, Operations and Compliance at Taxi and Private Hire Licensing.
Good morning, everybody. Jason Singh, Head of Service covering taxis and private hire licensing.
Good morning, everybody. John Mulcahy, Chief Officer Elections and Regulatory. Both licensing sections fall within my remit.
Good morning, Nicola Raper, Section Head Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning, everybody. Matthew Nelson, Principal Licensing Officer for Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, Councillor.
Morning. I'll just add myself in there. Councillor Rick Downs, Otley and Eden Ward. Got stuck in traffic in Headingley.
I think it's common practice, isn't it? If you're late to the first licensing committee meeting, that you have to volunteer to all the extra subcommittees. I think that's what I'm sure that's common practice. So, not that you don't anyway, Rick.
I was going to say, how many more do you want me to do?
Welcome. I know you've got a long way to travel, so no worries being late. Nice to have you with us.
Apologies, Councillor Downs. I'm Helen Gray. I'm the clerk for the committee.
Helen, if we can go through agenda items number 1 to 5, please.
Thank you, Chair. Under agenda item number 1, there are no appeals against refusal of inspection of documents. Agenda item 2, there are no items that require the exclusion of the press or the public. Agenda item number 3, there are no late items of business. However, under item 7, there will be some discussion on the licensing subcommittee memberships at that point. Item number 4, could I ask members to declare any interests that they may have? I'll take silence that there are none, thank you. And agenda item number 5, we have received apologies for absence from Councillor Senior today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. Right, we move to agenda item number 6, minutes of the previous meeting, which were held on the 18th of March 2025. Are we happy to accept them as an accurate record? Yeah. Thank you very much. Then that's gone through. Agenda item number 7 then, please. Licensing Committee Annual Governance Arrangements, which is page 15. I'll hand over to Rob, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief on this one because this is just the renewal of the current terms of reference of the licensing subcommittee, and that members note the terms of reference of the licensing committee itself, and the members are to appoint memberships of the 5 licensing subcommittees, and to approve the officer delegation schemes. Again, there's no changes to that. So it's just a question of members if you've got any questions on any of those, but it's just the annual renewals, if you like.
Okay, members, any questions? No? Happy to move in terms of page 15, the recommendations? Yeah, thank you very much. Then we shall move on to agenda item number 8, and it's back over to Rob, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is the annual renewals. Renewing the procedure rules. There's no changes to the licensing subcommittee or the committee procedure rules. And also to approve the code of practice. Again, there are no changes to the code of practice. Just for the new members, it is, well, for all members to familiarise yourself with the code of practice on determining licensing matters. They apply to all members of the council, and specific parts of it apply in particular to members of the licensing committee when determining matters relating to licensing, taxi and private hire, and premises licences. And it's really how you conduct yourself in relation to those, particularly if you're dealing with one within your own wards. But it's all set out there in the code of practice, and it is recommended that you do read that.
Okay. Are we happy to move in terms of the recommendations on pages 35 to 36? Okay, excellent. In which case, we shall now move on to the real business, which is agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 9, which is introduction of mandatory cashless card payment facilities in all Hackney carriage vehicles. And we'll move over to Jason and the taxi and private hire licensing team to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks licensing committee approval of the introduction of conditions requiring all Hackney carriage vehicles to offer cashless payment facilities and for all drivers to offer and accept cashless payment facilities where required by passengers. The licensing service has received an increasing number of complaints over the past couple of years due to licensed Hackney carriage drivers refusing to accept cashless or card payment, causing concerns for public safety. The complaints have been received from passengers and the trade. It is proposed to amend the Hackney carriage vehicle conditions and related Hackney carriage proprietor and driver conditions to make offering and accepting cashless payment mandatory for licensed Hackney carriage journeys. It must be remembered, cash payments will still be accepted and allowed for all Hackney carriage journeys where passengers wish to pay using this method. Over 72% of Hackney carriage vehicles already offer card payments. The proposed amendments seek to ensure the minority of proprietors, vehicles and drivers who do not already do so are offering cashless payment facilities. It is proposed that this change is initially introduced as a temporary policy change through an addition to the Hackney carriage vehicle proprietor and driver conditions, with a view to incorporating these changes into permanent conditions when the respective policies undergo a full review as per the review cycle. The purpose of the Hackney carriage vehicle conditions is to set out the terms and conditions that will apply to those seeking licences and those already licensed for the Hackney carriage trade to protect the public and help ensure they receive a good service. You will see from the report that the information obtained from ukfinance.org shows that since 2019, the value of debit and credit card transactions made by UK cardholders has increased by 26%. However, the numbers of transactions made on these cards has risen by 42%. This shows a move towards a larger number of payments for a lower average value, driven by factors including people moving away from cash towards debit cards, the continued trend towards small businesses accepting card payments and for cards being accepted for low-value transactions, and the growth of contactless payments, with it being easy to make lower-value transactions using cards as well as smartphones and watches. There were 18.9 billion contactless transactions made in 2024, a 3.4% increase compared to 2023. The average value of contactless transaction in 2024 was £15.86. a 1.7% increase compared to 2023. The introduction of mandatory Card or cashless payments has been requested by the Hackney Carriage Associations and trade representatives through their quarterly trade forums. These associations are regularly receiving complaints from their members that drivers are often refusing fares that are not financially attractive, stating they do not provide card or cashless payment facilities, which results in drivers who offer these services having to undertake these journeys. An online consultation was conducted with the Hackney Carriage Trade between the 13th and the 30th of November in 2024. The survey was sent to 737 Hackney Carriage drivers and 537 Hackney Carriage vehicle proprietors in Leeds. Overall, 211 people responded to this consultation. Overall, 72% of the respondents currently offer a cashless payment facility and 28% do not offer this facility. In total, 62% of respondents believe that offering a cashless payment facility in Hackney Carriage vehicles will improve the level of service provided to the travelling public in Leeds. Overall, 88% of the respondents felt offering cashless payment facilities will improve the level of service, agree with the proposal. In comparison, only 3% of the respondents did not believe the proposal will improve services and disagreed with the proposal. Full details of the consultation report can be found with the appendix within the report. In the last week since the report was published, there has been some representation received from the trade and possibly shared with committee members that the implementation of this requirement could place drivers financially at risk by passengers reporting payment in error or fraudulent activity on their account following payment by card and the banks issuing a chargeback. We have taken note of this concern, but as earlier stated, approximately 72% of the Hackney Carriage trade are currently already offering this cashless payment facilities, and this is not an issue that has been raised with the service previously by the drivers that currently offer this service. I can confirm that, as with cash payments, drivers will still be given the opportunity to request an upfront payment prior to the commencement of a journey if they believe there might be an issue with payment at the end of the journey, or agree a fare in advance prior to the journey commencing, provided this amount does not exceed the metered fare. This is a long-standing custom and practice amongst the Hackney Carriage trade within Leeds and is accepted by the public and the licensing authority. Also, as with the introduction of any new policy or change, the Council will monitor the implementation and respond to any adverse impacts as required, although we do not expect to have to do so based on our evidence and experience regarding this matter. The introduction of the requirement of mandatory cashless or card payments facilities to be available in all Hackney Carriage vehicles will improve the level of service offered to the residents and visitors to Leeds, who will have the security of knowing that if they choose to travel by taxi in Leeds, they will have the option to pay by cash or card. Our consultation demonstrates the proposal is welcomed by the trade and the vast majority of the Hackney Carriage drivers as a positive measure. And I'm happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Richard. Very thorough. I appreciate you taking the time to put such a detailed report together. I've got Councillor Buckley first, please, with a question.
Thank you, Chair. When I first glanced at the papers on this and I saw introduction of mandatory cashless card payments, I thought it meant to the exclusion of cash, but of course, having read them, that's not what it means. So I've got no problem with the proposal. But what strikes me is that from time to time I get a taxi from the Merrion Centre, from the rank up to home. And it costs more than private hire, as you know, but it's sometimes, say, £18.40, something like that. And I'll just give him a £20 note and say, that's fine. And I just wondered, what's the situation with losing tips? Because if you're given a card machine, you don't tend to mess about with tips. You would just pay the amount. So isn't this a loss to the drivers?
Richard?
It's not something that has been raised by the trade as a major issue, Chair, Councillor. I accept it's a factor, I think it's a marginal factor, and it's not a significant issue that's been raised at any stage in the consultation or by the trade in our discussions.
Yeah, I think it's a concern that's been raised more widely around moving to a cashless society, isn't it? That there's a lot of people that will miss out. So I think it's a valid point to raise. But as Jason said, it's not been brought up in this consultation. But fair point. I've got Councillor Martin, then Councillor Haig, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just sort of thinking, given that it's the priority of the licensing committee to look after passenger safety, that's where I'm starting from. But I'm also thinking about the use of hackney carriages may or should create, or maybe will create for certain passengers, a greater feeling of safety. You pay a bit more, but you can get in them from the street and hail them from the street. So if you're stuck in the city centre on a night time, that might feel the safest place to go to rather than trying to work out a private hire number. And I'm just thinking about the confidence in that trade if people can't use their cards or their phones. Quite often people go out the house, let alone with no cash. They go out with no wallet. They're just there with their phone. So for me, it's about. I'm just wondering about the confidence in the trade as well in having this new regulation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think the trade are quite happy with the consultation that we've had with the trade, that they would like to see this introduced. As I've mentioned, 72% of the service are currently offering the service, and there has been no issue in relation to people not being able to pay. If there is any concern, as mentioned within my introduction to this report, they can turn around and they can request a payment up front at that moment in time. So the driver does have that security if they have a concern to be able to request that up front. It is a custom and practice within the trade, and there's no issues in relation to that.
Yeah, so I was thinking about the majority of people might not know that they are not required. I'm sort of double negativing here, but they might not know that currently black and white cabs have got the freedom not to accept cards. So just bringing this in just reinforces that confidence in black and whites. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Very useful comments. Councillor Haig, please, then Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you. I welcome this proposal. I'm a regular user of Hackney's, Private Hire and Uber, and I have long felt that the Hackney trade to continue to be a vital part of our public transport in the city. It does need to have the standards that customers expect, and that includes taking payments. And at one point I did start making notes of my experience with Hackney drivers surcharging, refusals, getting the car behind, the card machine not working when clearly it was working. And I know that it is very easy and convenient for anybody now to set up a phone as a cashless terminal where they can take payments on. So I absolutely think there's no reason at all why Hackney shouldn't accept this form of payment. And in fact, speaking as someone who's perhaps out in the nighttime economy, I don't like carrying cash when I'm going out for an evening. I don't feel it's safe, and I feel it makes me more vulnerable. So the only reason practically these days I carry cash now is if I'm going out, if I'm going out for an evening and thinking I'm going to get a Hackney, I have to take cash with me because I can't guarantee that our driver will accept it. And I think that's a really significant point when it comes to safety. I'd also say, and at that point I'm thinking, well, I could get an Uber and I'll know the name of the driver, I'll know what car I'm getting into, and also, someone can track me on the way home. So I think this is an absolutely critical change. And I'll just address the point on tipping, because I certainly don't tip if I've been charged a surcharge of 80p for using my card. But I've been to other cities where they have a terminal in the back, or they have something on the machine itself where it says, do you want to add a tip? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Or you can just say to a driver, £8.20, charge me £9. So tipping is still a thing that can happen, and I'm quite, people going to bars or restaurants will be quite used to being presented with them. Do you want to pay an extra 5%? So I don't think that is a valid issue, really. So yeah, I absolutely welcome this change. I think that it's a really positive thing, and if we get the message out to people in Leeds, it means that they will be more willing to use hackneys, and that will be a boost to the trade itself.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. I mean, just to reiterate that most hackney carriages, as it stands at the moment, a significant percentage are accepting cards. I know it's a condition of the JTC, and the hackney carriage trade do a fantastic service for our city, provide a wonderful service. I think it's just about tightening up on some of the anomalies. I mean, I've had a personal experience of not being able to get on because I've only had a card, but it's few and far between. Most do accept, and nearly all drivers are absolutely wonderful and provide a great service for the city, and we can't thank them enough for what they do. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair. I'm glad that we're coming into the 21st century. This is Leeds, and we're always bragging about our beautiful, great city. So I'm glad we're coming into the 21st century where people have a choice, cash or card. When you go out of Leeds, you have cash or card on any taxi from the train station. However, this is just regarding hackney carriage. What about the private hire vehicle? I think they also need to come in line, and because they're refusing picking people up if they don't have cash, and they have a thing where if you get in and you don't have any cash, they take you to the cash point and sit out there waiting for you, and I think that needs to change, and I think we need to really and truly look at them accepting cash or card and not refusing if people don't have any cash. So that's one thing. And then the other thing as well, I'd like you all to have a look at taxi drivers who are getting their licence in Bradford. I believe they say it's cheaper, but they're doing all the trade here in Leeds. So can we have a look at that and see what can be done about it? And they're from outside of Leeds. And like you say, you get in the taxi and they're saying, well, can you direct me? It's not my job. I'm paying you for a service. So we need to look at that. If they are going to, they need to learn the road map like London at taxi do. You can get in a taxi and half the time I tell them the wrong code, but they always know where every hotel is or everything. So I would like that to be addressed. We look at drivers who are getting licensed from outside, if they're going to work here, to know the geography, the roads, and why is it they're doing all the trade here cheaper, and for private hire to also get in line and accept cash or card. So I'd like that to be going forward, please.
So let's break that down a little bit. Look, we've got time, so I'm happy for taxi and private hire licensing to address some of the concerns that you've raised, and quite rightly so, raised them. But I just want to reiterate that this item is to do with hackney carriage, and you've brought up issues surrounding private hire. So let's just be absolutely clear that these answers are pertain to private hire rather than hackney carriage. We all going off script a little bit, but I will ask you to come back on those two issues, please. So the first one was cross-bordering. The second one was, what are the rules around accepting cards for private hire?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to cross-bordering, yes, unfortunately, other vehicles from other authorities are working regularly within Leeds. This is something that the enforcement team monitor. We work closely with the other authorities. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, it is legal for these drivers to actually work within the city, provided that they are meeting certain requirements. It is something that does need looking at, I agree with you fully, and we will constantly keep this under review with any direction that we get from the government. In relation to private hires accepting car payments, the bulk of the private hire drivers operating for Leeds companies currently do accept car payments. Now, that is something that you've raised this morning. It is something that we will go back to the operators. We will say that there's been a concern raised, and we will look at that, and we will come back to you in relation to that, Councillor Hamilton.
So just to be clear then, so if Councillor Hamilton gets a taxi, say, and it's with Uber or Viju or whoever, and they refuse to accept card, the procedure would be for to make a complaint about that, because they should be accepting card?
It's not a requirement at this moment in time. It's a service that the bulk of the private hire companies do offer. If it's something that we can take up with the private hire operators, and it's something that we can look to bring and implement in the future.
Okay, well, let's look at that, because I think that's a really valid point. I wasn't aware that it wasn't part of their conditions. So you're quite right to say that there should be parity between both services. So let's look at that. Okay, I've got Councillor Bowden, then Hinchcliffe, then Carlisle, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so firstly, great service that the Hackney carriages provide, and I think there's a good element that this is sort of a standardised fairness for all of them. We've got 72% already providing the service, so I think it's good to bring the other, 28% in line. Definitely agree with Councillor Martin's safety concern. I can absolutely imagine people, if they need to get home, and it's very rare that some people might be carrying cash nowadays, that is a really excellent service to get home quite quickly. And just another thing that comes to mind is a lot of residents use Hackney carriages because they're a bit more accessible than sometimes private vehicles are. And to me, being able to use a cashless service if someone's got fine motor skill issues or concerns, I think making sure that there is a cashless service is definitely the way forward. And I would just think the idea that this eases the service. I can imagine people, if they try to get a Hackney carriage, and if they've gone to a Hackney carriage where it's one of the 28% that don't take cashless, I can imagine that might have a negative impact on them wanting to get a Hackney carriage in the future. So if I see this policy actually as this might increase the trade for Hackney carriage drivers overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for your comments in relation to that, and I fully agree with what you're saying. Just to give you some ideas, I did ask one of the Hackney carriage drivers in relation to some standard fares from Leeds city centre to other areas, and the figures for these fares are quite significant sums. So we're talking from Leeds city centre to Bradford, that would be a fare of around £30, to Halifax 48, Huddersfield 50, York 65 to 70, and Harrogate 45. And just in Leeds, we've got Leeds to Headingley around £12 and to Seacroft £15. So this is significant amounts of money that people would be expected to have late at night carrying, and this is the reason that we are looking to bring this change in, so people have the security that they have the funds available to travel home late at night, so they've got cash or card to make that payment.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, long overdue, this. I think everyone's struggled before to get Hackneys, and when they're only taking cash, it's a bit of a nightmare. It also, touch on colleagues' points, brings us well into line with our obligations to safety of women and girls and making Leeds an accessible city. You know, I'm a governor at a specialist school, and often I'm told of inaccessible, not just Hackney carriages, but taxis overall, so this is welcome. Comment on a couple of the respondents saying why, or claiming why they're opposed to this. I don't think as a licensing authority we can accept I prefer cash is king example, or to avoid paying tax. It's illegal. So let's not accept tax avoidance on this authority. One question is, customers do need to know about this change, and as Councillor Haig said, people might think they still need to take cash into town late at night. So how are we going to communicate this? Is there a strategy in place, or is there one planned? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Leeds City Council has an excellent social media team. That is the way that the bulk of information now is given out to the public. We will be making full use of the social media team through Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, to make sure that these changes are made to the public. We also have strong links with the students, so we will get the message out to people. And also the trade will also get the message out to the public as well, because let's not forget we have 537 vehicles out there that will then start talking to the public, and this message will soon get round very quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Carlisle and then Siri, please.
I was just looking to get clarity on one thing that was about surcharging, because you obviously pay a fee, right? The driver would pay a fee to whoever's got their machine or whatever. So are they allowed to charge that surcharge to the customer? Is that? I don't know.
They won't be allowed to make any surcharge in relation to the customer for making a payment by cashless or a card. It will be governed by the financial regulations, which says that you can't turn around and then make an additional charge for using a card or a debit card.
So I was just interested. So has that been raised as an issue? Have you had resistance from drivers saying, well, we prefer cash, not because we obviously definitely aren't avoiding tax, but because we just don't want to pay the surcharge? Has it come up?
It's not been raised as an issue, hasn't that?
Go on, then, Kate.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me come in. As I said, I have a payment on my phone. Surcharging for that is about 1.75% from the payment, so it is trivial. And also, of course, people have to pay to bank anyway. You might have to pay, if you're paying large amounts of cash in. So I think 1.75 or less. Some of the providers are less, so it's not a huge amount of money.
Thank you for raising that. Ed, Councillor Siri, then, please.
I just want to seek some assurance that cash isn't going to be replaced by this system, that it's going to be an either-or option rather than just cash or just card.
Cash will be accepted. It will be an option. So it's just that the drivers will have to offer cashless or cash for payment. So there is no requirement for the drivers just to only accept card. It is either or.
I mean, yeah, it would do completely counter what we're trying to achieve in terms of safety if it was just cashless, wouldn't it? And then people would be in the same problem if they just had cash. Yes. Rick.
Thanks, Chair. Just one very quick comment. The points that Tom made about the concerns that were raised, the fact that both systems will run in tandem actually completely overrides that. So you can still pay in cash. So you can still... Yeah, exactly. If that's what you want to do, you can. And I fully support that. I think, the way we're moving forward, but there are still perhaps some older people that aren't... that are still suspicious of banks and don't want to use bank cards and things like that. And I think that the more options we can offer to everybody, the better. But I think in today's society, you've got to be able to pay cashless if you want to.
Okay, final questions then, colleagues. Nobody else is indicating. So are members happy to support the recommendations on page 55 to 56? I won't read through them, there are a few. Can we actually raise hands, please? Those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous then. So that's fine and that's approved. In which case we shall move on to agenda item number 10, which is the date and time of the next committee meeting, which is Tuesday the 1st of July at 10 o'clock. same place, same time. And that's it for today.
We were going to go through the list. Yeah, subcommittee chair. Give me
It's not on mine.
page 21 of it.
This was the schedule that you got.
It's appendix 2 on item number 7, so we've already approved it. We only received who was going to be on the committee yesterday after the AGM. It's been notified to me that there's a few people that can't do some of the subcommittees where they've been scheduled, so it needs to be re-looked at again. We have actually agreed the under agenda item number 7. It's going to come back to committee. I mean, we can go through the licensing subcommittee and who's on which committee now if you like, but it's all going to get changed, so it seems completely pointless to me. Okay? Okay, thank you. All right.
Sorry to.
Right.
There's one next week, though, isn't there?
Subcommittee.
Yeah. So what I wanted to know is who's on the one next week, because it's in my diary. But I could go away next week if I'm not required. I don't know.
Sorry, Chair, if I can respond to that. I did message members before annual council and asked that existing members of subcommittee C, D and E, if you'd be available to continue with the rota for the first few meetings into 25-26 and to let me know. So if you are available to do your meeting. Yes, please. So I was going to ask members once the meeting's finished just to have a look at
I'm trying to be
diaries next
flexible for people that have told me that they can't do things. So I'm trying to meet people halfway. So before you sort of continue having a pop at me, it's because I'm trying to help people, all right? Right, we're going to close the meeting.